So our first keynote focuses on what is increasingly becoming the critical hub of fleet decarbonisation, and that is, of course, the depot that we've already heard about a little bit this morning. As commercial fleets transition to zero-emission operations, depots are evolving from vehicle parking areas, essentially, into sophisticated energy and operational centres. So to explore what future-ready depots look like, please join me in welcoming Naomi Nye from Drax Electric Vehicles.
Thank you, Jill. And good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. So for those who don't know me, I am Naomi. I am Head of Sales at Drax Electric Vehicles. And for those unfamiliar with Drax, we are a global energy company. We are part of the national critical infrastructure in the UK. So when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining, we are providing around 10% of the UK's renewable power. And we're really about supporting our customers to decarbonise. And we do that through a number of different vertical markets. We do it through supply of renewable power. We do it through electrification services. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that today. And to date, we've installed over 15,000 of those EV charge points. So we have a bit of experience in that area. And the other vertical market we look at is optimization services. So flexibility, what that looks like, along with a whole raft of power purchase agreements and various other things. But back to today, electrification, and particularly, I think, around electrification, we're going to be talking about depots and how we can look at keeping our design of these depots future-proof, how we can look at decarbonising at scale. So when we talk about fleet decarbonisation, I think we focus the conversation around vehicles, right? So which technology is going to win? How quickly can fleets transition? What are the costs and the operational impacts? And these are all really valid questions. But increasingly, I think we're discovering that vehicles are only part of the equation, and there are a number of areas here that we have to consider. The real challenge, I think, and often the biggest constraint, is the infrastructure, because a zero-emission vehicle is really only as effective as the depot that supports it. As fleets move through from pilot projects through to that larger scale deployment, depot design is becoming one of the most critical factors in determining whether that decarbonisation succeeds or whether it stalls. And today I just want to explore a little bit more around what it takes to design those depots to support electrification at scale, what good essentially looks like in practice, and how we can ensure infrastructure doesn't become the bottleneck in that transition to net zero transport. I think the first thing we need to recognise is that electrification isn't simply a vehicle replacement exercise. You're not swapping a diesel bus or truck for an electric one and essentially just carrying on as before. Electrification and thinking about, we're using now energy as a fuel, fundamentally changes how we're using our energy and how energy flows through the operation. Historically, and I think you can see here, depots were places where vehicles just parked, maintained, potentially refueled. But tomorrow's depots are really thinking about becoming more like energy hubs. They're having to manage power demand, charging schedules, grid constraints, operational requirements, and increasingly more complex energy systems. And this means that depot design can't be treated as an afterthought. It has to be considered at the very beginning of fleet planning. And the most successful projects that we see are those that really understand their operational requirements first. How many vehicles need charging? When are they available? What are their duty cycles? What level of resilience here is required? And only then can we start determining the infrastructure that needs to underline it and needs to support them. Too often, I think, organise requirements and the charger specifications rather than those operational outcomes. And I think what you see there is a result of either an under or an over-engineered system. It does mean that you'll have unnecessary costs. It means that infrastructure can struggle to meet those future demands. So good design for us is about having seamless infrastructure, having charge points in the right location, doing the right job for you. And good depot design takes that systems level approach. It recognises that vehicles, chargers, energy structure, infrastructure, software, operations, all these things, they're all interconnected. Charging infrastructure being only one piece of the puzzle, the energy supply that sits behind it is equally as important. And for many operators, grid capacity has emerged as one of the biggest challenges in scaling electrification. In some locations, securing additional power can take a long time, and in all locations, when we're looking at any grid upgrades needed, there is a process there to work through. That reality means that organisations must think strategically about how energy is generated, how it's stored, and how it's managed. And this, I think, is where flexibility becomes increasingly valuable. And it doesn't have to all be done at once. A lot of people we talk to think we have to do everything in one go. We don't. We can do it in phases. We can build it out. But what we do need to think about is smart charging, battery storage, energy management systems, all of these things that can really help optimize capacity, reduce peak demand, and lower those operational costs. So rather than treating charging as a fixed requirement, operators can then actively manage when and how that power is consumed. And the result is a depot that's not only more resilient, but is also more economically sustainable. And economics matter, right? The transition to zero-emission fleets, it must work operationally, it's got to work environmentally, and it's got to work financially. Infrastructure decisions made today can end up shaping the costs for decades. And that's why future-proofing is so important. Jonathan mentioned earlier, so while battery electric vehicles are currently leading deployment across many sectors, we should also recognise that the future is unlikely to be defined by a single technology. Different applications will require different solutions. Alternative fuels may continue to support parts of the transport network, particularly in the larger vehicles that we're looking at. And some operators may manage mixed fleets for many years to come. So the question therefore becomes, how do we design depots that can adapt? And the answer, I think, is flexibility. Think about flexible site layouts, think about flexible energy systems, flexible infrastructure strategies. So rather than designing around today's technology alone, we should be designing around future operational requirements. And that means considering space allocation, utility connections, energy capacity, technology integration, all from the outset. The goal here isn't to predict the future perfectly. The goal is to avoid creating barriers to that future change. And because the cost of adapting a depot later is often far greater than building that flexibility into the design in the beginning. So what does good look like? Good depot design starts with operations. Think about your requirements and how your infrastructure needs to underpin all of your needs. It integrates vehicles, charging, and energy as a single system. It prioritizes resilience and flexibility, and it plans for growth. And it creates a clear pathway for future technologies rather than locking operators into that single solution. Most importantly, it recognizes that infrastructure is a strategic asset. I think we do forget this. I think we just think it's a project and it needs to be delivered. But actually, it's the foundation for long-term decarbonisation. And as an industry, we've made significant progress in proving that zero-emission vehicles can work. The next challenge is really ensuring that the infrastructure ecosystem can really scale alongside them. And it's the scaling that's really important here. Because if we get depot design right, we unlock the full potential of fleet decarbonisation. If we get it wrong, infrastructure risks becoming the limiting factor in achieving our net zero ambitions. I think the good news is that we already know many of the principles required for success. The task now is about applying them consistently, collaboratively, and at scale. And this is where we can help support. So please do reach out. I'm more than happy to have a chat through, answer any questions, and I really look forward to the rest of the day and speaking with you further. Thank you.